On this edition of Let's Talk Cincy.
The Ku Klux Klan tried to blow me into heaven, blow me away. But you don't kill leaders. You don't kill the idea if you kill the person. But God saved me because he had to have somebody go through a spectacular demonstration of his power.
We go into our archives to share more voices of Cincinnati history makers. From WLWT, this is the Emmy Award-winning show, Let's Talk Cincy. Presented by Western and Southern Financial Group. Put our financial strength behind you.
Hi there, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. Today, we have a great show planned for you. Here's what's coming up. The NAACP is the nation's oldest civil rights organization, founded February 12, 1909. It was established 117 years ago by a diverse group of men and women who were responding to injustices in the nation. Over the years, we've heard from many people who have shared their thoughts about the significance of the NAACP.
For me, what the NAACP stands for and fights for is about correcting those wrongs that have been perpetrated on society as a result of racism and unfairness.
Everybody has to have a refuge. And we go to our churches, we depend on our families, but the NAACP has taken care. It has been a refuge, not just for Black people, but for all people, people that want justice.
For me, NAACP is a leading organization for African Americans. In my lifetime, it's been the organization that's made the most gains for African Americans. So I've always wanted to be close to it and always wanted to be considered a good member.
We're looking at economics. We're looking at transportation. We're looking at healthcare. We're looking at the digital divide and saying we want to be a part of the whole community. And to relegate the civil rights movement to stereotypical issues, in my opinion, diminishes the movement.
When I was a little boy growing up in Asheville, North Carolina, I never thought that we were going to see the day when we would have an African-American president, because the stories that I heard were the stories of my mother, who was unable to drink out of the water fountains in her town. She had to drink out of a color-only water fountain. And when she went off to college, her options were limited. She was not able to go to the University of North Carolina, which is where she wanted to go. She went to Durham College, which is now North Carolina Central. And she got a great education at Central. And that's a great, wonderful institution. But the point is that her opportunities were limited. When she'd ride off on the train to go to Durham College, she had to ride in the colored-only train.
Well, I was born in 1953, right? So a lot of my early images, things that were just kind of seared onto my retina and from there into the brain, were those arresting images on television from Selma and Montgomery, later Watts or Harlem and all of that. And so the NAACP, for me, early on, kind of hovered in the background as, these solemn-faced men, who called the country to account and held before it the highest, deepest ideals that animate us as a people, and ask us, how long will it be till we get there? What I've discovered along the way, as I've gotten to know the NAACP more than just images on a TV screen or whatnot, is that that moral voice is still very, very strong. That's its engine, if you will, or compass. But it's all about how that gets realized day to day, isn't it? I mean, it's all great and all that to have a moral voice to say, here's where we must go and this is what we must do. But moral voices have to kind of, as it were, roll up their sleeves and get immersed in the work of the world, And so I think of the NAACP in both ways now, that it's a moral voice, clear vision, has a sense of where it is that we all must go to fulfill the promises of the country. And then it's a matter of doing the hard work day by day to try to ensure that the promise keeps opening up, because it seems to want to close a little bit too much.
I can remember in the 60s in North Carolina when the NAACP came to our church, and that was the first time I joined the NAACP. And it was just, there was so much electricity around that time and all the things that were going on. And it was very important to be a member of the NAACP. And every night on the news, you were seeing people like Thurgood Marshall and, Julian Bond and Young and all of these people who were doing all these things. And I can remember seeing Rosa Parks on TV. Then I remembered when I met Rosa Parks in person, and it was like, she's such a wonderful, giving person. I was really impressed by her. But, that was the only person of that stature of my teenage years, of all these things I'm seeing on TV, that I actually got to meet in person. And that was very important to me. And I think the NAACP has just always been an organization for me that has been about us as a people and also inclusive of others as people. Because when you think about the NAACP and its start, it's not started just by Black people. It was started by a group of people that were Black and white, probably more white than Black. But it was an important thing to do, and it has remained a very important organization.
The NAACP has stayed the course. And what I mean by that is that its moral compass has remained true to its founding principles around social change and institutional change and improving the conditions or the human condition. When I was certainly a younger person, we had individuals in our neighborhood that when they were affiliated or associated with the NAACP, we at that time thought that the NAACP was an organization which was not necessarily doing as much as it should. However, what balanced that out is that those individuals in our neighborhoods, in our communities, Rosa Parks, she lived 4 or 5 blocks from me, Wade McCrae, Judge John Conyers, and Damon Keith. These individuals were right around in that neighborhood, and it wasn't not a what we used to call when I was growing up a bourgeois neighborhood. It was a working class neighborhood. So we had immediate symbols of individuals who were with affiliated with the NAACP, and their relevance now that is being taken up by the Young Lions. So those Young Lions are continuing the philosophy and the energy and the application that Fred Shuttlesworth and those individuals laid on us when I was growing up.
Things today, sometimes we take too much for granted. And our young people, we need to be setting the examples for them. We as adults have not always been the best examples, but the NAACP and the principles and the things they stand for, those are the things that inspired me and continue to inspire me, and which I have worked to inspire young people by setting an example in fairness, equality, justice, and not just in words, but in action. We have too many people with a lot of rhetoric, but not a lot of action.
It sets for me an opportunity to help my grandchildren to know the power of this organization and the value of the organization. I have 8 grands, and they're the joys of my whole life. And I want them to understand the value of this organization.
If one is motivated by deep religious impulses, you have to kind of look around the world and assess it against those religious impulses. And what you find doesn't quite match what you're what you want to see, and therefore it's important to try to do what you can to make the change, I think.
It's a big tent philosophy. You can be a member of the NAACP, doesn't matter what your race is, what your religion is, how much money you make. The only requirement, or what your politics are, the only requirement is that you are passionate and care about justice. And so thanks to the work of the NAACP, we've made some progress, but the work is not done. I mean, I think that there are some people who would say, well, now we live in post-racial America. Well, that's not true. We're still going to face problems. We still are experiencing problems in our community that we need to come together to solve. And so the NAACP is going to be as relevant now as it was when my mom was drinking out of colored-only water fountains and riding in the colored section of the train.
There has been tremendous progress in the area of civil rights. However, I think the progress that we tend to animate simply reminds us of the distance we still have to travel. I feel like I was on the ground floor of the civil rights movement. Not in the same way as some more prominent people may have been, but as far as experiencing life, the 50s, the 60s in college, the 70s being first professional experiences, and then in the 80s where we started to reflect, and now we are reflecting and questioning. I wouldn't be any place else if I had a choice but where I am now.
I think there were three anchors that triggered my interest in civil rights. First, I came of age as a high school student when Martin Luther King and Robert Kennedy were killed within 3 months of each other. And then it became personal when my dad was fired from a company that he had been very loyal to for many years and had no recourse, and I witnessed him basically fall apart as a result. And then I was in law school when our president became a crook and got indicted. So I decided that it was best to sue government rather than be a part of it.
When I think about the changes that have occurred, I always think about what happened at Bluefield State College back in Bluefield, West Virginia. I can remember that we had a professor. She was a lady, Mrs. Jefferson. I never forget her. She had 18 of us to visit her home. And the next day we were sitting at the lunch counters as they were all over the country, seat in between, and we were trying to break down that thing that you go into a restaurant and they wouldn't serve you, or if they did serve you, you had to get up and move about to eat. You couldn't sit at the stools in the five and dime, or you had to go up to the back stairs into the in the theater. So during that time, you know, I guess we were impacted also by the fact that the president-to-be, Senator Kennedy, visited us at Bluefield because he was trying to win in West Virginia, and he figured that if he won in West Virginia, he would become the president. And so therefore he did visit us at Bluefield State, and we had that to realize, but we also knew what was going on in the rest of the country.
The NAACP nowadays is still more relevant than it formerly has been. We still need this. We still have a lot of unfinished work. We still have issues in education. We still have issues in the political arena. We still have issues in the economical arena. And I don't know if people understand that two things that really work together, they are education and economics. If you don't have access to economics, or we would say to funds, we have a problem. If you don't have access to education, we have a problem. And those are two enormous problems that still exist today.
Frequently, I'm asked the question, are we better off today? I can only answer by saying yes, we are better off today. However, we're not nearly as accomplished in the area of inclusion as perhaps we can be and ought to be based on the effort and the journey we've traveled.
Welcome back. Today we share the story of Cincinnati history maker, civil rights icon, the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth.
The Ku Klux Klan tried to blow me into heaven, blow me away. But you don't kill leaders. You don't kill the idea if you kill the person. But God saved me because he had to have somebody go through a spectacular demonstration of his power to live in Birmingham. And when the detective said to me, he said, if I were you, I'd get out of town as quick as I can. I said, well, officer, you're not me. You go back and tell your Klan brother that if God could save me through this, I'm here for the duration, and the war is on.
He was the fighter, and he would tell you himself, he used some spicy words, not words that he would use in the pulpit, to let people know we're not going to do what they're doing to us. We're not going back, in other words. And he would just let them know, because a lot of times they were trying to be very diplomatic. He said, when dogs are biting our kids, hoses are blowing us down the street, and the racism is so overt with, of course, Bull Connor being the commissioner there, it was just, he had enough was enough, and he was dogged. He wanted to die in the movement is what he said. He said, I'd rather be killed. He said, either we're going to kill segregation or be killed by it. The room that we sit in is called the archives room here. And these were things that were just in his basement, in his garage. Again, he never made a show of himself, but all these things that we decided, hey, somebody came in and looked at these artifacts and decided this a poster here and other things that were in the room, we're actually just going to digitize them and put them on the metaverse. But we never really overstepped anything or made a great day. But they just last year, and we're thankful for the Mayor Woodfin there in Birmingham for making March 18th Fred Shuttlesworth Day. And it was just such an iconic day of things. And of course, the documentary Shuttlesworth. So we, as a family, we've just kind of taken his lead to stay back on what we need. And so, yeah, the airport, of course, being named for him, that was just a wonderful thing. He was there. You know, again, that was, he actually, that was, I think, 2009, somewhere in there, but it was, you know, the latter part of his life. But that honor, he never fought for that. But the mayor at that time, I think, was Langford in Birmingham, and he fought to get that airport named after this iconic man. And then, of course, the street here in Cincinnati, North and South Crescent, are now North and South Fred Shuttlesworth circles. And so again, him seeing that, it was kind of, he was always that, you know, don't make any fuss out of me, but he was bigger than anyone can ever imagine or believe. So again, just that, and of course, you know, the statue down there in Birmingham that they gave him, he saw all of that. And of course, this church here, and you'll see again, I was talking about the metaverse that we're doing. They got some aerial shots with these drones of this church, and it's beautiful. It's going to be part of his legacy that we're understanding. We're still fighting the fight, and you know, we shall overcome has to be we have overcome. We have now overcome. We thank God for Miss Shropshire and that beautiful song, but the mantra has to change now because it's time for us to get our 40 acres and a mule and then some. And so that was his fight, to make sure black people had the pride and the diligence to get what everyone in this country is entitled to. Well, again, the big three, him, King, and Abernathy were there. No one has ever picked up the mantle other than, you have the Al Sharptons, the Jesse Jacksons that are galvanizing, of course, to keep the narrative going. But again, as far as the movement, you know, this church, you know, being, you know, that he built it here, and there's actually a school here now, the Fred O. Shuttlesworth Christian Academy, and part of their curriculum is to teach about this man, Fred Shuttlesworth, that were in the building, that basically the house that Fred built. And so for them to know and understand, but again, getting it in the metaverse is the big thing now to make sure people know this is his story, and we're not trying to market or push anything. We just, like you said, want to put it out there to know it's part of the lexicon of our country, is that this man was a great man, did some great things for people. But again, I as a pastor have kind of just, or as a young grandson of his, had just kind of shied away with the family. But I'm now taking the bull, I'm kicking the doors open to let them know, hey, just like you talk about great people of Martin Luther King, you talk about John Fitzgerald Kennedy, other people in our country, George Washington, Fred Shuttlesworth is in that conversation.
And speaking now to this vast crowd at the Lincoln Memorial is the Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth.
Freedom belongs to anybody. It belongs to everybody. And until everybody has freedom, nobody is really free.
His teaching to us was just like Christ. He came to make of himself no reputation. So it didn't matter to him that he wasn't known as a speaker there. He wanted freedom for black people, period, point blank. And so there's now a documentary out, Shuttlesworth. It's on YouTube, and the Alabama Public Television has put that out, that shows him actually speaking. And there's a famous actor, Ruby Dee's husband, standing right behind him. And they were all there. And it's like, again, seeing it on film, it's like, wow, you talk about it all my life, but you see, yeah, he was actually there. My mother and her sister both went, and they had their feet in the pool right there because they were just so tired from the march too. And they were young teenagers, and they were there with their father and all the different speakers, celebrities and everyone that was there that day. But very hot, but it was just galvanizing just to see millions of people gathered there at the Hall of Washington there to talk about the freedoms that Birmingham had been fighting for many years. So it was like the culmination, because Birmingham was like ground zero. All the bombing, all of the dogs and different things, the fire hoses from the fire department and that. So they basically had to look from themselves to make sure that we're here, we're understanding our father's about to speak, but again, the main speaker that day was Dr. King, and they kind of given everybody like a 5-minute limit on speeches. And so here Dr. King is trying to cut his famous speech down to 5 minutes. And so he said, I can't get this. And they said, no, you're the keynote speaker. So that was the memory that they knew that their father was going to be a speaker, but there was so many other different speakers there, including Reverend Shuttlesworth and others. Hearing his voice, it just re-galvanizes me to stay on my mettle as a pastor, as a grandson, and then as a quote-unquote civil rights historian, to let other people know. But then there's more that has to come just in saying I'm a part of the team. I need to actually step up, and if no one else will, I definitely have the DNA to step up and say, hey, the fight's not over. We have to finish this thing out, and you don't get to round 14 of a 15-round fight and say, I've won. You have to finish it. So I think we're in the latter parts of that, but we have to now galvanize, and I think with all the things that we're doing here, getting connected with the new generation in the metaverse, digitizing things, people can see who he is and then live off of that and re-galvanize and re-energize this thing we call the civil rights movement in America.
Well, that does it for the program today. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Curtis Fuller. I'll see you next time for another edition of Let's Talk Cincy. Until then, have a good day and a better day tomorrow.